over. Hold on. How does it go? Dude,
Bueno,
there you go. What's
I'm
your
not singing this.
excuse? Oye, ¿cómo va? Yeah. Mulata. Oye, ¿cómo va? Mulata. Yeah.
First
Welcome to, that was the first for you, man. That was awesome. Welcome to IoT Coffee Talk.
The people.
What the hell's the problem with the Spaniard? How come he can't sing this stuff? Is it because it's Mexican?
No, actually, Santana was not from Mexico, right? Was from San Francisco? Or
No.
Where he was born? In Mexico?
Tijuana, man.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's Mexican.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Carlos Santana.
Yeah. He's awesome, man.
Absolutely, yeah.
Actually, I looked at footage of him playing at Woodstock, and I thought he played. This might be sacrilege, but I thought he played better than Jimi Hendrix. I was like listening to some of his stuff, going, "Wow." Well, back in the day, if I was a guitar player, I'm listening to Santana, I'd go, "Wow, this guy is just off the hook." And if I looked at Jimmy, I'd go, "Yeah, he plays some really cool chords and has some really interesting arrangements, but he's sloppy as hell and he sings like crap." That's what I thought. I mean, in all honesty, but you live and you learn.
I hope you don't get what's the word, swatted when someone gives off your address and you have like Jimi Hendrix outside of your door.
That could probably happen, and that would be really bad. No, hey, so just to keep the record straight here, I love Jimi Hendrix. Okay, so don't come to my house and vandalize it. Keep that shit away. So, okay. Hey, Marc. Dude, this is your topic. So what are we talking about?
We are talking about that we are living. Yeah, we are going to talk that how 2020 and 2021 show how the world is not well defined, and how some events are destroying the chip manufacturing, and this is why we are living on this chip shortage these days, and how this can affect the IoT on the growth. No, what we are talking sometimes that, hey, how can we make the IoT happen? Or move from POC to production?
Yeah.
If there is a chip shortage, probably that's not going to happen.
It can make it tough.
That's an easy answer. And I'm going to go and get some funding next week. I'm going to virtualize the chip for all IoT devices. Don't ask me how. That's not your business. I just need $100 million and I will virtualize it and solve the problem.
I love that. But what do I always say? Software may be eating the world, but you have to have hardware to run it on.
You will need another chip to virtualize the chip.
You cannot escape hardware. And you know what? It's weird. All the sexiness went to software, and everyone kind of ignored. They tried to run away from infrastructure. Oh my God, we just have to outsource it. We have to virtualize it. We have to do. But I don't think people. I think people lost appreciation for hardware and all the stuff that makes all the software possible,
Yeah, but it's because it's obscure to the majority of the population. I mean, what's the out of all the consumers that buy, the mobile phones, the IoT devices, the laptops, the cars, the TV, everything that has these, who's thinking about, microprocessors and what's Taiwan doing versus China versus the US, why shrinking the size and having factories. No one's thinking about that until we get to Marc's point to right now, where it's like, oh man, so I cannot make these things anymore. I cannot fulfill that order.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, well, maybe let's get educated.
Yeah. Yeah. But you guys are absolutely right. I mean, no one cares about this stuff as much as the industry cares about it. And, I cover this whole industry quite a bit, and you just assume that everyone gives a crap about it. But you're right. They don't until they get impacted. So what are you guys seeing? I'm just curious. What is it that you guys are seeing in a material way where this quote unquote chip shortage is impacting your business or the business of folks that you know around you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I see a lot of companies having problems because they cannot find the right chips to finish. Well, first of all, all the automobilistic companies have to stop, not because of the pandemics or they don't sell cars, it's because they don't have chips.
Yeah.
And actually last month, I think another factory, I think in Japan got burned. So they even has less chips production since last month. So it's interesting to understand as well that the wall is not bad design, but 80% of the chips are manufactured in Asia, South Korea, Taiwan, and China. So probably as well, one of the problems with the last Trump's period was that, some of this relationship with China was broken or kind of broken. So this chip production bottleneck went to other countries, and they couldn't produce more. So that plus pandemics, plus that people wanted to buy more computers, phones, routers, cameras, and so on, made this problem. So actually, I was reading, and actually one of the funny stories is that now there is the chip shortage, but as well, shipping a container full of chips, it's very complicated. Because what the logistic company said is, sure, we have to ship a lot of containers full of chips, but on the other hand, they will arrive in the US or Europe or wherever, but there are no containers there to come back with a ship full of containers. So as it used to be in the past,
and the prices for them, there's a lot of logistically, when you ship a container full from one port to another, you're also counting that you have another order to fulfill so that this comes back empty. And I think a few months ago, we saw such a high demand of shipping being needed out of Asian ports that people were shipping containers empty just to save on lead time. And that caused a lot of issues, including chips and other goods that are being sent, and the Suez Canal thing the other day that also didn't help because they're not done with that yet. Like the backlog, it's not like they're moving. It's been nuts, and then specifically to the cost. I was reading this just in between Europe, like between Port of Rotterdam and just another European ports, and like prices have tripled, and you have regular folks, maybe not your Fortune 100 semiconductor chip manufacturer, but like other people going like, I used to pay $5,000, now it's $25,000, and people are paying the money because there's a shortage of containers still. It's nuts.
Yeah. That's interesting that you're bringing that up because when we think about the chip shortage, it's a lot of times it's being characterized as we don't have enough capacity, which is not entirely true. And so, I've written about this several times on LinkedIn already. There's a difference between your supply chain management, and then your supply chain planning. And when you think of the supply chain, it's more of the structural thing, right? So if you're a company, you have a network of suppliers that you work with. They may be located in different areas for different reasons, but as you mentioned, a lot of the tech supply chain runs through Asia, and a good portion of it runs through China. And the thing is actually, let me ask you this: if you see this impact of this shortage, what kind of devices are you finding are struggling with supply? Meaning, is it the high-end processors? In the IoT world, what are the kind of devices that are deficient? Sensors? What kind of specific things?
Yeah. First of all, in October 2020, the factory that was producing 80% of the oscillators, the crystals that are running on chips, get burned. So they produce the 80%. So any microcontroller or any chip that needed an oscillator had a problem. So we can say, as far as I know today, that every CPU, microcontroller, or communication module has been impacted because of that. Then now we have one of the biggest factories for that, TSMC in Taiwan, who has water shortage, for example. So Taiwan, is on, I don't know if it's a dry season or not, but is not allowing the factory to spend more water. So it's like a lot of things happening at the same time. It's a kind of exponential.
I second that on the on basically on a communications module put together, ready to put on a on another board to make an IoT device, but it's not, it hasn't hit every vendor at the same time, and I think that there's a combination of maybe some of them have better planning and foresight than others. Maybe some of them were just not selling anything, and all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, I've got it." No, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
It's like, "Hey, I've got inventory, and I can have it there in the U.S. border control, export control. It'll be there in 8 weeks, right?" So that's happening, but it definitely, it's funny because it's one. If we pick a category and we just go cellular-based LTE modules. Right, one category, and then let's pick LoRa just for the sake of a category. There's not that many players. We can name them all here really quickly, but they haven't been hit all at once. And I wonder, and I hope if this in a way will be a boost to some of the lesser known players in this space out of necessity. Right, I have this demand. This looks like it meets specs. Let's give it a go. But I also worry that it doesn't, hurt, the more, traditional suppliers to this space.
Yeah. I mean, this whole situation is so complex, from the top to the bottom, and then you have COVID in the middle disrupting everything. But there's a lot of finger pointing going on, saying, "Oh, it's because of our supply chain." Well, it's like, the supply chain's been around for a long time. It's been pretty resilient and robust, and it still is, even with the China-U.S. tech, war that's going on, or this Cold War that's going on. It's still been pretty resilient, right? Things still run through China despite all of the bluster. I mean, it's a fact. And people are still sourcing through China, but not everything comes out of China. All the more advanced node stuff, that's definitely Samsung and TSMC. But all the components then get shipped to China or other Southeast Asian countries to be assembled, and then the finished goods come and get distributed around the world, and that continues for all intents and purposes, continues to work, and the economics still sustain the way that the supply chain is structured for the overall tech industry, if you will. Now, the question of do we nearshore and build these new foundries? Well, you have to be very careful about thinking through that. It's not, number one, you have a lot of different types of devices, and the chips that are in most, I guess, that are challenging at the moment, okay, are stuff that are legacy node stuff. It's not the advanced as much the advanced stuff, the stuff that, the 5 nanometer stuff, the 7 nanometer stuff. That there's both Samsung and TSMC have a lot of capacity in the advanced nodes. It's the stuff that's legacy that's tough, and investment into those legacy nodes is even tougher. There's not a lot of countries that will do it outside of China.
Well,
And so
let me turn this into a softball question to you, Leonard. So, using COVID vaccine production as an example, right? So, early on in the U.S., we decided like, hey, for the companies that are based here in the U.S. that can produce this in the U.S., we're going to give the U.S. priority, right? We're going to make this stuff here, and we're going to distribute it here. And recently is when we've sort of been opening up, like, hey, we've got a decent supply, so rest of world, if here's some for you, right? Out of necessity, pandemic, health issue, many deaths. So are you saying that maybe that's not like basically that approach doesn't cross over into this chip shortage? Do we not think that there's enough negative economic impact where we should, the same manufacturers, maybe with tax incentives, maybe with assurances from, the rest of the supply chain to bring something to the U.S. and stand up a legacy, factory that can also compete with with a 7, 5 and getting, nanometer chips?
Well, I think there's another way that you could approach it and scale out even faster, which is why don't you just get license the IP, like Moderna and Pfizer license the IP out to Chinese and Indian pharmaceutical manufacturers and let them scale this thing out massively, or even J&J.
Isn't there like? So, how are we traditionally afraid of that? And and I'm not an expert here, so I'm not going to go into, well, we know what's going to happen.
Now we're getting into, this is where things get a little bit political, but from practical standpoint, let's forget about geopolitics. Let's talk about where does it make the most sense to produce to solve the problem. Moderna, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, you guys have the best vaccines. We need to save the world. Okay, and let's just assume that everyone is altruistic and we're all one brotherhood and sisterhood of humanity, trying to tackle this problem, this threat to humanity, which is the coronavirus and COVID-19. Here, you guys have the biggest facilities. Here's the IP. We're gonna send 5 or 6 experts for each of the drugs to work with your guys to stand up the production in your massive facilities that you already have, and you guys can produce this stuff for cheap. Go at it. Instead, what we have right now is we have our pharmas locally sourcing, struggling to produce in mass quantities in a short amount of time. So the way in practical terms, think about the opportunity cost and the opportunity lost to possibly save lives. So just again, taking all the politics out of this, because this is a very political thing, from a practical standpoint, it's still this whole thing still makes sense, because we have the rest of the world that may not be as wealthy as us, and some that are economically struggling, that need a low-cost option. They can't pay a premium for this stuff, and they have to save lives and save humanity. Because, like what we were saying, Marc, this virus is intelligent, and the more that it spreads, the more it learns about how to kill us en masse. It's what it's programmed. That's what it's AI model right? It's trained to do. Right now, it's an infant. It's going from body to body, going, okay. Oh, vaccine. Eventually, it's going to figure things out.
I want to bring it back to the chipsets, though. So it's because it's not going to be altruistic. So
yeah,
if that scenario of company with the IP sending human resources and using somebody else's capacity, if that's not going to happen to alleviate the chip shortage, then does it mean that then this is not a problem? Because right, we when things are a problem, we throw money at it to
right. But
so why gives? Because it's not going to be altruistic, an Intel, a Sequence, a Micro, Onsemi, all of. Look, IP's their baby.
It's capitalistic, but when you throw the geopolitics into the mix, then that equation starts to shift. And in terms of IP, I mean, think about. We're talking about leading edge stuff. It's being produced mainly out of South Korea, foundries in South Korea, foundries in Taiwan, foundries in Singapore. So,
but Leonard, I wouldn't compare like the vaccine production with the foundries, because the pharma industry, it's all around the world. So probably in India, in China, in Australia, in Spain, there are places where they can manufacture these vaccines if they can license it or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't think that in short term there can be a foundry in Arizona.
No way.
Or
no way.
So I wouldn't compare them.
Yeah. Hey, Rob, what's up, man?
To understand.
Just hanging out at a foundry in Arizona.
By the way, great point.
And on the other hand, for example, I think Biden, Biden or the U.S. government, it's going to invest like $30 billion on these.
Yeah,
but
80. Yeah.
I don't know if it's TSMC or another foundry. In South Korea, is investing $28 billion. So like a private company, it's investing exactly the same, like a government, just to have the numbers. So imagine how the industry, it's going to grow. I was reading like a blogger saying, maybe it's a good idea to buy stack or shares from these foundries now because they are going to grow a lot.
Yeah, I mean, again, it all depends on the generation that you're talking about of silicon. The advanced node stuff, yes, but it's really tricky. The big risk here is for the foundries for the generations that make economic sense are most prone toward overinvestment and overcapacity in the future. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm saying this is just so not simple. And just to go and say, hey, look, we have a chip shortage. We're gonna go and start building foundries everywhere. Really? Is it that simple? You think that's a good strategy? To sit there and just...
If you have smart cities, the city should be smart enough to make the chips, no?
We have a bomber shortage. We're going to start making bombers. We're going to convert your car assembly lines in Detroit to making B-24s. It's the logical human thing to do, that we see a problem and we react to it. But, I mean, that's how we are.
Yeah, that's how we may be. But, building foundries, like what, Marc, you said, building foundries, it's expensive business, right? And outside of Intel, we don't necessarily have that many companies that are really great at leading edge stuff. In fact, some people argue that Intel has lost their edge. So if that's the case, we have to import IP from China and South Korea, right? And then we have to be using Dutch equipment from ASML. So it's all foreign stuff. It comes from the outside. It's not something we have on the inside. But the bigger question is, what is the chip shortage and how do you solve the problem? Or is the shortage be a demand side issue and a planning issue from a supply chain planner's perspective. Because, Toyota, they stockpiled. There's a thing called safety stock. There's a thing called inventory management. And when you suck at it, you end up in this situation where you don't have enough components. And the ironic thing is, it's the microcontrollers, the stuff that are legacy node stuff, built on legacy node stuff, that are more in shortage than anything else. But, so reacting to a shock and then creating an aftershock, your own aftershock of your own making, is that the solution? And, what does it really take to move the needle? Because I'll tell you right now, building new foundry capacity, you're not going to see that capacity come online for at least 3 years. So what good is that going to do today? Almost zero, in fact, today.
This will be good to turn into a Freakonomics or Planet Money episode, because I think that what we're experiencing now, with all the issues that no one could have planned for a few years ago, I think that decisions that were made 10 years ago is what's biting us in the butt right now regarding the chip shortage. But I tell you this, Leonard, as someone who lives very close to some of the Intel fab shops, I would love it if someone built another facility here in the US, because it employed a ton of people from the day they were prepping the site until the white coats walked in there. So I'd say let's build one at least.
Well, Intel's going to build them anyways. They're going to be investing. I think it's that 20 billion is the Intel number. I think the U.S. government's looking at investing 80. But the question is, what are you going to invest in, right? And it's not just fab. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the chip supply chain that people don't think of, where you have even more of the deficiencies and issues that are causing constraining supply or production, foundry production. But to tell you the truth, there has been no people have saying, well, we have capacity issues. Like, well, no, there's been supply disruption. Well, maybe, when you look at the whole supply chain situation, but as far as foundry capacity, I mean, these guys have been running full time through the pandemic. They've been killing it. Look at their financials. It's ridiculous. All of them, Intel, AMD, friggin' all of them. So where's the problem? And so you have to ask better questions, as you say, David.
David, I have great memories of when Intel built the fab plant down your way. What is that, Beaverton?
Beaverton.
Beaverton, Hillsboro.
Hillsboro, right. Yeah. When I was in the Navy on submarines about to get out, you up at the Bangor Trident base, which is about 3 hours north of you on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State, Intel and lots of other folks would recruit submariners, who have different technical skills, who were getting out. And I remember at least 5 or 6 of the guys when I was getting out all got jobs working in that fab plant, and that was pretty cool. They were smart guys, had great skills, and I'm right there with you. It was great having those jobs. To your point, Leonard, sometimes I know we oversay things like a failure of imagination or not looking at the broader market, where they're just looking at PC sales to determine how many chips they should make, rather than going, I wonder if cars are turning into computers.
Yeah. Overnight.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, because you're right. If all you're doing is planning on, desktop, laptop, PC sales to drive your production, then you're right. You would have missed this growing space. And then you find yourself playing catch up like Intel's doing right now with the 2 fab plants they're going to build in Arizona. And you're right, you're not going to see that capacity. The other thing,
Rob, so tell me, none of these people saw the 100 quadrillion IoT forecast from a couple of years ago. Did we not prepare for that? We told them.
The analysts told them, and they're always right. Yeah. It's funny. You're right. There's the trends that people just tell you about, and there's the things you actually see happening. Yeah. And you can see the car thing happening for sure.
I mean, reality.
It's funny.
Reality bites.
When you talk about Toyota stockpiling, it also reminds me of back in a better day for the airlines, which there are a few. Not many good days for airlines anytime. I remember when the price of oil was really high, and obviously that impacts jet fuel. And so that impacts the profitability of airlines greatly. But I remember while lots of airlines were suffering, Southwest Airlines was doing great because they were buying jet fuel futures and hedging their positions way back when at a lower base cost for the price of kerosene for jet fuel. And so when everyone else was in pain, they were doing great. And this sounds like just like Toyota is doing great now. It's like we saw the future and we stockpiled chips so that the rainy day is here and we're okay.
Yeah. And if you do look at what a lot of Chinese companies, their quote unquote tech companies are doing, they were stockpiling because the U.S. policy created probably an adverse effect where these guys are saying we're going to buy up like years of chips. And that's what Huawei did. That's what probably ZTE did because, even though. And here, think about it. The reason why they're able to stockpile is because despite all the bluster of the previous administration, they didn't stop chip sales to these companies. It's just a fact. And so unintended consequences,
Maybe people are just really stupid and dense. Because I find that a lot of times the message is hiding in plain sight. Of how things are going to play out. And you're right. A lot of times it comes from policymakers, whether at the top of government or other places. And so anyone who was listening over the last 4 or 5 years would have gone, oh, I'm hearing a shortage is coming based on America shutting down the fire hose. Let's react right now. It also not to bring it back to oil, but I could certainly predict the future whenever there was a time when OPEC said, we're going to stick it to the Americans who are fracking and outproducing us. Yeah. We're going to drive down the price of oil because we can survive. And so when I remember an OPEC meeting maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and OPEC said, we're going to keep pumping full speed ahead and we're going to inflict pain on America. And I'm like, I wonder what that's going to do to ExxonMobil and Shell and all the super majors. They're probably going to go down and the price. So, and it's like the messages are out there if you're listening.
Oh, yeah. But, sometimes the action, the action or the thing that you need to do is painful. It's not something that you would normally want to do. And it's one where in the boardroom, they're kind of scratching their heads going, should we, or, it'll pass. Next thing you know, it doesn't pass. You go, holy crap, we have a shortage. Oh, chip shortage. I was like,
thinking of also of reading between the lines and as the chief instigator officer of this thing that we do, why are we not terribly afraid and concerned that when it comes to the physical supply of semiconductors, chipsets, etc., there's 5 companies that make them, all of them. Like if something bad happens to one of them, like that's a problem. If one of them becomes a bad actor, that's a problem. If we have geopolitical issues from one, someone's going to get hurt. So back to me always saying, if there's a problem, and it costs people money, we would solve it. Why don't we see this as a problem? I mean, like there's manufacturers that are hurting today. There's people who are not delivering goods today because of the shortage. Why do we only have 5-6 manufacturers in the world that can make these things? Simplest answer wins. I don't know. I'm asking out of ignorance here.
Scale. Open source chips.
Exactly. And maybe that's an opportunity, right? But yeah, I mean, now it's not the right timing. It was like Rob said, like 4 or 5 years ago, the opportunity.
Yeah, but don't,
it's too late.
Yeah, but don't get chip design confused with chip manufacturing.
No, you're right. It's hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you have like RISC-V. Actually, I had James Pryor of Sci-Fi on, and we talked about RISC-V and what its readiness is and stuff. And open doesn't solve all problems. In fact, open sometimes can cause problems that need to be solved. So,
How's
space looking? How's RISC-V looking to you?
Me? I think it's. I mean, it has a lot of momentum. It's got a long way to go. You just the podcast will come out today, so all
right, cool.
But it was a really great conversation. I kind of held James's feet to the fire a little bit, so he had to produce some honest answers, which was awesome. But don't think that RISC-V is going to save the world, like what you're saying. A foundry is not like converting an auto plant into a bomber manufacturing facility, right? And even today we wouldn't be able to do that. I mean, do you think we can sit there and produce B-2 bombers in an auto plant? No.
They're too sophisticated now.
Yeah.
The bombers back in World War II were just simple mechanical machines like a car.
Yeah, and we produced tens of thousands of these things. Yeah. And we lost tens of thousands of these things because they, compared to, think about it. We have only maybe 20 B-2 bombers. That's it.
They probably use a lot of chips.
Oh, yeah. And they cost billions of dollars, right? Each. Back then, in those days, they were producing think about it, guys, tens of thousands of tanks. We only have, the United States has only 2,000, I think it's like 2,800 M1 tanks total, right?
Yeah, you guys are remember when Dragon made the first launch and someone made a comparison of the dashboard of Dragon, right? Which was like two buttons versus our first space shuttle, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's what it's changed. I think to Rob's point, so just to say, hey, I want to make, F-35s out of a vehicle manufacturing plant, it's going to be like, no, guys, that's it's not going to work like it did, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow. So chip shortage impacts cars. It's impacting IoT, I guess. Or if IoT was really, really successful, it would be impacting it.
Well, hey, think about it. It's affecting the IoT part of the car, right?
Among other things. Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, you just have like a dumb car.
But let's imagine this scenario, like a startup who raised money to make hardware. What should they do?
What should they do?
They should do what Elon did and grab all that money that they raised and just put it in crypto.
Boom.
Hey, no, look.
No investment advice.
Like $100 million for Tesla for a Bitcoin sale.
You want a disclaimer? You want to make a disclaimer there with that one?
Yeah, no, guys, totally being sarcastic. Folks, do not do this. Do not do that. Hold investor money to what you agreed to. Do not be a fraud. We don't need any more IoT fraud or any kind of fraud. So there, disclaimer. Thanks, Leonard.
Right.
But that's a damn good question, dude. That is a really good question.
Also, a trend that's driving more chip usage and will now maybe suffer is the explosion of cloud computing. The hyperscale cloud players are buying chips like there's no tomorrow, right? To keep upgrading, keep building out data centers all over the planet at a pace that normal businesses never did. And so it's probably driving the shortage, and I expect them to feel pain. And I expect to see these companies have little notes in their little Q2 or whatever reports to the SEC that says, hey, we may not be able to expand into these new geographic regions or update our stuff because there aren't enough chips. It affects everything, doesn't it? Or a lot of things, for sure.
Yeah, and systems are not complicated, are much more complicated. They depend on various generations. So, generations of chips made based on different generations of manufacturing or a semiconductor process. So yeah, this is, like I said, it is so not simple. And to make generalizations and think about it simply and thinking we throw money at it, we nearshore, we onshore, these are not simple answers, because the question is immensely complex. And when I look at what is being written about this stuff, I roll my eyes. I go, I've been rolling my eyes for the last 4 years around this whole topic, and it's just. You especially with the policymakers, they really need to get good advisors, and calling up the CEOs of these companies is not exactly the best way of going about doing it. No, think about it. What's the interest of CEO of a company? Are they really going to make a good policy advisor? They'll tell you, they'll lobby, because that's what they are. But are they really good advisors in terms of helping you understand? I mean, it's like, what Bush did when he went over to Japan way back in, this might even be in the 80s. He took the big three automakers, CEOs, went over there. They went and whined like babies. He threw up on the lap of Prime Minister Nakasone, and they came back with nothing. And it's simply because they didn't want to sell cars in Japan the way that cars are sold in Japan. They wanted to sell cars in Japan the way that they sell cars in America, right?
You mean how most companies do product development nowadays? We're going to tell you what you want, okay? Here. This, how we make it. Go.
Yeah. I mean, but you know what? That stuff doesn't work, right? There has to be sort of this and we're in a different world. Back then, we were talking about multinational corporations. We didn't get to this point where we're talking about the globalization thesis, right? Today, everything is so much more complicated, interrelated, distributed. The supply chains are very, very complicated, and you have to have a clear head to think through all this stuff. And sometimes the obvious answer is not the right answer, right? Or what seems to be the obvious answer. And so that's where you just have to be really careful about the way you think about this stuff, and develop a more, let's say, refined lens versus relying on these really simplistic notions of what the semiconductor industry is like,
Well, look, it's not all doom and gloom. I think some of the good reactions, folks in the IoT space and other spaces that are being negatively impacted by the shortage today, they're going to ask good questions. They're going to ask, "Hey, is there a way to diversify? And if so, even if complex, what does that look like?" Right? Yeah. They're also going to be asking, "Could we have planned for this better?" Like Rob's point, like who should have been listening, and what should we listen to in the future, and because geopolitics and and that sort of stuff, like that's hard to solve for. I mean, it's politicians need drama.
Well, you're going to have to factor that in, but you work your way back. You work your way backward to that sort of neutral position and figure out what makes sense. Why are things the way they are today? that you have to fundamentally understand before you start to layer on all the risk factors and all the other, the geopolitical factors of I don't like you and you don't like me and we like this person, we like that person, all those changing dynamics. Once you know why and where we are today, then you can kind of work toward where you want to be. And there's plenty of folks who just don't know where we are today. They just have a very simplistic view on that, and that lends toward bad strategies and bad policies, and unintended consequences, shooting yourselves in the foot. That's what happens. You got to do your friggin' homework.
Do your homework. Yeah. So, like to David's point about buy crypto, So let's pretend that this is actually an investment roundtable on Wall Street, or maybe we're doing Jim Cramer Mad Money.
Okay.
And where would you be investing based on this shortage of chips? Auto manufacturers say they're going to take multi-billion-dollar losses because they're going to stop their assembly lines because they can't make new cars. New cars. Is there a market for used cars? Worst case scenario, America becomes Cuba, where people are driving 57 Chevys.
They're beautiful.
They're beautiful.
Galactica, baby.
And see, and now we can sing "Oye cómo va," with a.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Doing it right.
But you know what? People adapt. Think about, and that's the most extreme example of adaptation was in Cuba, right? Boy, they learned how to fix cars, didn't they? And it turns out cars can last a really long time if you really need them to.
And you can't hack them.
And you can't hack those cars. I'm all in with 20th century technology that cannot be hacked.
Yeah. Full on Battlestar Galactica. Cylon hack proof.
I meant to ask, Marc, is there so sticking to the shortage, are you guys being affected differently in Europe than here in America, or it's kind of like the same story everywhere?
I think it's the same story worldwide. I mean, as you say, there are 5 factories all around the world in Asia. So yeah, I think everyone is affected the same way. So it all depends on the stocks that the big distributors have in each countries. Or so, for example, a friend was telling me that a big distributor who actually were selling them microcontrollers or whatever, or communication modules, etc., called them like, "Hey guys, do you have these microcontrollers? Can we buy them to you?" Like, "Hey, we are an engineering firm. We don't have a stock. So if we buy something, it's because we are producing." But imagine the situation where a distributor is calling one by one the customers to buy any stock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, I think this. So the question is this gonna be like the toilet paper shortage, or is this gonna be solved?
Toilet paper.
Well, that one, it turned out it was absolutely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Right. And now it's a joke. It's a meme now. It was.
Yeah, but it's the same. So a lot of companies are gonna say, "Hey, because there is a chip shortage, let's buy the stock." No, like Toyota or whatever, no, or Tesla or whoever. It's gonna say, "Hey, let's buy all the stock because there is shortage."
I'm gonna go buy stock on companies that sell a lot of used cars, right? Because they have those businesses are set up already. So the CarMaxes, there's a couple of apps that do it. That's where to throw money. Disclaimer: we're just talking amongst friends here. What do you do with?
We're not providing financial advice.
No. I mean, look at this. You do not want financial advice from this guy.
Yeah, look at the background. I mean, what is that? A Pac-Man machine in the background?
NBA Jam.
NBA Jam.
Oh man, looking forward to play with you. That.
Yeah, man. Let's do it. No quarters needed.
Woo! I love it.
Yeah, man.
I bought it before the chip shortage.
Smart guy. It looks like it's from the 80s too.
Yeah.
That's your 57 Chevy.
Is that a Raspberry Pi or it's the real one?
Is that like
No.
NBA?
It's got some sort of like shrink motherboard with a couple of controllers in there. It's not the real thing.
Hey,
Okay,
you know
it's like
what?
an emulator.
I got an idea. Sell your machine back there, your arcade machine for chips. It can probably run an IoT device somewhere.
You know what?
In fact, you know what? If you don't have enough chips, just go friggin' full blown.
I'm gonna start taking apart my smart home devices that were bricked.
Yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of Echoes and whatever Amazon
Exactly.
things that I
Just
don't use.
disassemble
I'll
them.
donate them, and you can take the chips out of there and use it for something
Exactly.
useful.
Chip scavengers.
Yeah, other than a surveillance device, a home surveillance device. No, I mean, that may be a good mitigation strategy, is start going to the trash. Go to the
Yes, dumpster diving for chips.
dumpster
Recycle,
dive for
no?
chips. Think about, I mean, even the older generation smartphones, they're good enough
Leonard,
for a lot of
30
stuff.
minutes ago, you were telling that, the legacy technology was going to the toilets. And now you're saying recycle.
Go to the toilet and save it.
Exactly.
No. I wasn't saying that the legacy stuff is. Well, what do you mean? It was in the toilet? No, the legacy stuff is still good. There's a lot of most sensors are on legacy nodes, and so I was suspecting that you would say, a lot of the sensors that we need, the chips are in shorter supply. The CMOS or whatever. It's all good stuff, but think about it. These things use the most advanced components, right? And there's a lot of different types, and they're produced using a lot of different nodes. But an iPhone 9 probably has components in it that can be used in that would be now very economical to use in a lot of different. So not only are you recycling, it contributes to sustainability, blah blah blah, all this stuff. But what do? We just sit there and toss these things in the landfill. So
386.
386.
I've got about 20 billion 386 chips laying around with math coprocessor. You're back in business, baby.
Yeah, and then we can all go back to running DOS and Windows 95.
DOS and Windows ran really well on 386s with 1 meg of RAM. How is that possible?
They were fast.
Why does it take so much compute power and memory to make things run fast today? What happened, Microsoft? Every new chip that Intel made, Microsoft sucked the life out of it. Oh, man. I have to get ready for my next meeting.
Okay, cool. So do I. That was a great session, guys.
Good stuff.
Who wants to take us out?
I don't know if we solved anything, but
no, we did toward the end. I think that we need to go dumpster diving.
Dumpster diving for chips.
What it boils down to.
That's the takeaway. That's the title. Dumpster diving for chips.
But, here's the thing that sucks. We dump everything in Asia. So we're screwed.
Oh,
yeah,
no,
we have to near source that. Yeah.
And they have all the rare earth minerals too.
Yeah. We're screwed.
We're screwed. That's the takeaway. We're screwed. So in the meantime, people, go to www.iotcoffeetalk.com. It's going to redirect you through the power of the interwebs to a YouTube page where you can look at all of our episodes, and you can you can subscribe, hit that bell, smash that bell.
Oh, man.
And check in on us, because we have a lot of good stuff to say, especially now that we're registered investment advisors.
No.
Oh, yeah, and on crypto.
Crypto.
Experts.
Ethereum, baby.
Oh,
maybe not Dogecoin.
To the moon.
Crap. Okay, I didn't have a gallery view. All right. See you guys.
All right. See you later.
Take care. Bye.